and distance seem to blend as one over the broad realm that is America's great Southwest. In this land of enchantment, descendants of the earliest Americans still follow primitive, time-honored ways of life. Their customs and traditions are pages from the past. Their world is a panorama of pastel landscapes, limited only by the far horizons. And here they remain, strangely aware but stoically indifferent to the spectacular unfolding of today's nationwide pageant of progress. Progress, ringing out loud and clear over the desert. Progress, strikingly symbolized by the big trains of the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railway. These modern trains, both passenger and freight, make mighty use of great stretches of level land to maintain traffic schedules that are among the fastest on Earth. The history of the Santa Fe, the nation's longest railroad, is rich in glowing accounts of its triumphs down through the years in beating back the challenge of time and distance with solid steel rails. Today, the Santa Fe operates nearly 13,000 miles of main line throughout 12 of America's larger states. Its system spreads south and west from the Great Lakes to form a vast arterial maze of modern transportation facilities, serving the rich commerce of the most rapidly developing section of the United States. Serving Chicago, abundant producer, manufacturer, and distributor. Kansas City, meatpacker, granary, and interchange point. Fort Worth, Houston, Galveston, and Dallas, booming industrial and marketing centers. Serving Oklahoma City and Tulsa, oil capitals of the Western world. Serving Denver, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and San Diego, miracle cities of the West. Rich farming regions all along Santa Fe's lines reflect the visionary wisdom of the company's founders. It was no coincidence that the spread of this great system southwestward virtually covered the same geographical pattern assumed since the turn of the century by the broad, steady flow of the nation's wealth and development. The Santa Fe was already there, blazing the trails, opening the way for the spectacular surge of prosperity to follow. In 1868, Santa Fe's management, buoyantly optimistic over the success of its first stretch of line near Topeka, Kansas, a scant 7 miles in length, launched a fabulous program of expansion, stringing roads of steel to dozens of faraway, almost legendary outposts of trade. The prairie schooners disappeared, but the Santa Fe kept moving ahead, spreading out. Today, the Santa Fe still maintains its century-old pioneering vigor. Its thinking, as always, is fresh and definitely individual. For years, it has given great emphasis to its expanding program of customer relations, always reaching out to help in the development, expansion, or diversification of the region's rich resources, both agricultural and industrial. And it is the only American line providing service all the way to Baghdad. Baghdad, California, that is. This spot on the map, like thousands of others, large and small, has grown with the Santa Fe, while the Santa Fe itself has become a very part of the history of the great Southwest. For example, in Disneyland, exact replicas of Santa Fe's earliest trains have fascinated millions of visitors. Here, the past, the present, and the future seem strangely intertwined. Monorail trains bearing Santa Fe's insignia cruise through this man-made fantasy land, intriguing the visiting crowds. More intriguing by far, however, is the natural panoramic splendor the Santa Fe itself provides for travelers aboard its big stainless steel trains en route over the broad reaches of Arizona and New Mexico. This is Indian country, land of countless tribal ceremonials. These festive events are rich in dazzling colors, with accent on the bright hues of red, orange, blue, and yellow. The Santa Fe has adopted the same vivid colors in different combinations for its big diesel locomotives. For vacationers Santa Fe-ing their way across this region, Arizona's Painted Desert near Holbrook is another kaleidoscope of color. A few miles away is the famous Petrified Forest, where thousands of fallen trees transformed into solid rock during the ages are eloquent of the timeless handiwork of nature. Further west, near Flagstaff, is Oak Creek Canyon, a vast amphitheater studded with hundreds of flame-colored formations. It's a veritable Shangri-La of natural beauty. However, the greatest attraction of all on the Santa Fe system is the mighty Grand Canyon of the Colorado. Its magnitude, its depth, and its color are almost hypnotic to those who come to marvel at its sheer, majestic grandeur. Our story, though, concerns man-made canyons being carved through mountains some 60 miles south, canyons to serve a more practical purpose. Here in September 1959, Santa Fe launched an epic $20 million project for building 44 miles of new high-speed double-track mainline to eliminate a steep and tortuous stretch of old track built back in 1882. Morrison Knudsen Company was awarded the rush order contract for the big job to be done, and virtually overnight, a veteran force of MK railroad builders with big rigs, drills, dynamite, and determination began the tremendous task of moving some 12 million cubic yards of earth and rock in the scant time of only 15 months. For years, nearly half of Santa Fe's gross freight revenue had come from commodities hauled over this mountainous route. The new line, plotted by Santa Fe engineers, would extend slightly to the north and thence westward from Bill Williams Mountain, a rugged landmark in a rugged region, named for a fabulous frontiersman of the old Santa Fe Trail. Far below its craggy summit is the town of Williams, headquarters location for the Great Line Change achievement, a job that added another dazzling chapter to the history of American railroading, a history that Santa Fe has been helping to write with bold and broad strokes for more than a century. According to the plan, the new line would follow a gently curving course from Williams to Crookton, well away from the old right-of-way with its steep grades, tight turns, and stretches of limited clearance. After its completion, all track between Crookton and Ash Fork would be eliminated. The southerly section of double track between Williams and Ash Fork would be removed, but the northerly portion would remain to serve traffic between Phoenix and the new main line. $600 top-hand MK earth-moving experts and $6 million in equipment were thrown into the big undertaking. A half-dozen spreads of big rigs were pushed into immediate full-scale production. In short order, earth and rock were being shifted at the rate of nearly 850,000 cubic yards a month. After only 90 days, a wide red scar had been laid open for more than a third of the distance to be covered by the new passage. Much of this broad new swath was already graded to specified levels. However, the fast-moving fleet of motorized scrapers was forced to play a subordinate role in the big operation, for only a minor portion of materials moved was classified as common, that is, easy to scrape up and haul away. Of the 12 million yards ripped out of giant cuts, some 9 million yards were solid rock. Almost half of this was a hard and brittle type of basalt known as malpie, notoriously tough to drill and blast. Along the whole stretch of the job, the subsurface strata was strangely mixed. Big rolling ridges, deceptively covered by clay, concealed deep deposits of rock. Here, heavy crawler-scraper combinations were called in to move the overburden, so blasting and shovel crews could take over. The constant and rapid shuffling of specialized rigs to meet perplexing problems on the job was a feat of logistics, a high-rolling, earth-moving game of put and take, with massive machines used in the play to ensure record production month after month. Breaking trail for excavation were 16 crawler-type drills, probing deep holes for the blasting. Each hole was filled with a combination of ammonium nitrate and 3 or more heavy primer charges of high-test dynamite, connected at different depths by detonation lines leading to the surface. 10 million pounds of explosives were used during the job. Here, where mountains rise some 12,000 feet, the weather is unpredictable. And on January 6th, 2 feet of snow fell during a single night, transforming the region into a winter wonderland. The mountains were a study in glistening white, but to the men on the job, it was a view that only accentuated their frigid feelings the morning after the storm. Although hampered by snow and nearly 2 weeks of sub-zero weather, MK's excavation crews stubbornly maintained their high record daily and weekly yardage output. The mercury dropped for 5 days in a row to the near paralyzing point of 15 below zero. Yet all equipment was kept moving night and day. Despite the rigors of the January weather, yardages of both earth and rock excavated were actually increased over the month before. More than 900,000 cubic yards had been moved and placed. With the coming of spring and fair weather, excavation totals kept climbing. More than 1 million cubic yards per month were being blasted and cut away. Separate spreads of equipment were deployed all along the line change route, each individual machine putting on a maximum production show. Their speed and dexterity in structure erection was reflected in the steady flow of concrete from the modern mixing plant. Nearly 20,000 cubic yards of masonry mixture was used in building a score or more important structures on the job. Big ready-mix trucks were always on the move to and from half a dozen sites, where forms were constantly being raised for additional pours of concrete. By July, MK crews were busy at cleanup tasks all along the nearly completed grade. Rigid specifications for this smooth roadbed allowed a maximum of only 1% gradient and only 1 degree curvature. This new 90-mile-an-hour way through the mountains would trim as much as 90 minutes from the traveling time of trains through the region. Santa Fe track crews were stringing the ties for the first stretch of double track. These heavy wooden cross members were unloaded from trucks in bundles of 16 and placed on a sled-like device attached to the mobile crane. Men with pickaroons pulled them roughly into place. On July 6th, a spur from the main line was laid at the east end of the job, and the first history-making trainload of continuously welded rail sections, each over a quarter mile in length, arrived at the site. Although Santa Fe had previously used more than 1,200 track miles of these tremendously long rails, this was the pioneer venture of laying them out over virgin roadbed in this country. A side boom tractor moved down the right side of the roadbed, its boom pulling two of the long ribbons of steel from the end of the last flat car. They were placed on double-flanged rollers mounted on cross ties. These rollers, decreasing the drag, enabled one tractor to pull two rails weighing 64 tons for their full length of 1,440 feet. Santa Fe trackmen followed through, spiking the rails to the heavy wooden ties. The tractor and roller method was a definite success. At the same time, MK crews were racing against time to open more grade ahead of Santa Fe's fast-moving track crews. The last level of rock was being ripped out of the job's largest cut, a giant chasm 115 feet in maximum depth and nearly 2.5 miles long. 2,150,000 cubic yards were taken from this one cut alone. When the old main line was built through this mountain barrier in 1882, excavation on such a scale was undreamed of. Even today, in this era of amazing engineering and construction methods, this great line change job was definitely difficult. It was a constant battle of wits, waged against a host of natural obstacles, so Santa Fe's big trains could speed across this rugged region over a broad, modern roadbed, a roadbed pushed through the hard way, with big rigs laying it out smooth and straight to meet Santa Fe's exacting specifications. Track-laying forces were close on the heels of MK excavators. Trainloads of steel were delivered daily, further and further down the line. Laying the second track of the double line was done with a rail-mounted crane, pulling the long steel sections from the end of the string of flat cars. By this time, every phase of the work was strictly routine procedure. The time taken for placing and spiking two of the long sections dropped from more than an hour and a half to a record time of only 41 minutes. It was a perfectly synchronized exhibition of skill, performed under a well-engineered plan. Each new shift was out to break records for footage of track laid and spiked. Thousands of tons of black volcanic cinder ballast was used to stabilize the new double track. The level of the line was checked out to the exact fraction of a degree by Santa Fe engineers. Two multiple-bladed mechanical ballast tamping machines were kept operating 18 hours a day. MK forces finished work on the elaborate new grade in late November. After only 14 months, the record-smashing earth-moving operation was complete. By mid-December, snow once more had capped the mountain peaks, providing a Christmas card backdrop for the finale of operations on the great relocation job. Santa Fe track crews tied in the new main line with the old. In a neck-and-neck race with Santa Claus, MK turned over the new Williams Depot to the railroad just 6 days before Christmas. On December 19th, a date deadline for 2 months ahead, Santa Fe's crack passenger train number 19 set out on the first officially scheduled run over the new line. Number 19, matching the day of the month, was the symbolic forerunner of all future trains to travel this modern double-track speedway. To the men who run Santa Fe's big locomotives, and to those familiar with the old steep and winding stretches of main line between Williams and Crookton, this new way through the region was a revelation. Number 19, cruising swiftly over the long lengths of continuously welded rail, created the impression of being almost airborne. Gone were the clickety-clacks from the railroad tracks. Instead, there was a steady whooshing sound, the sound of today's age of jet propulsion and rapid locomotion. The payoff period for Santa Fe's tremendous $20 million investment had begun. This brand spanking new 90-mile-an-hour modern way for modern trains through this rock-studded region would increase the company's net revenue by more than $1 million a year. Building this broad new right-of-way was a bold master stroke by the forward-looking management of Santa Fe. Men who have never skimped in laying out hard cash for improvements, large or small, if such spending resulted in the achievement of faster, better, safer operations. For more than a century, the Santa Fe has been constantly setting new standards for sound railroading practices, and the creation of this spectacular relocation route, with its massive fill sections and long, deep cuts, provides rugged evidence of the vigorous, enthusiastic faith in the future of American rail transportation felt by the men who plan for and manage this super railroad. In turn, the men of Morrison Knudsen Company, chosen for the task of moving these multiple millions of yards of earth and rock in rush order time, proudly share a feeling of kinship with the men who operate this great system. Both are at their best while waging a winning battle against the challenge of timetable competition or contract deadlines. Both are constantly on the move, one moving earth and rock, the other moving passengers and millions upon millions of tons of the vital necessities of a prosperous nation, moving them over roads like this. Roads being built, maintained, or improved to provide always a better way for the Santa Fe.